Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt.
And welcome to Sofa Reviews, as this year sees the release of Iron Man 3 with Ben Kingsley playing an Oriental villain. We decided to check out how he presumably earned the role by watching Thunderbirds.
Released in 2004, it's the live-action remake of the 60s puppet show.
So after the mind-numbingly long opening credits, we then get narration.
But in this family of heroes, there is one son left behind.
We're then introduced to the main protagonist of the movie, Alan Tracy, as he gets into trouble at school.
Here on Earth, we've been discussing the Pythagorean theorem.
And to help illustrate exactly how stupid Alan is, we get to hear him very loudly discussing his secret identity with his friend Fermat.
However, they're interrupted by news that the Thunderbirds are helping out with an oil rig fire.
Come on. Swing around. Can't get close enough taking that approach angle.
How would you know? You haven't even learned Pythagoras' theorem.
Of course, the Thunderbirds deal with the fire easily and rescue all of the rig workers.
Back at the school, where they don't bother wasting time with lessons or looking after the children, we're introduced to Lady Penelope.
She's there to take Alan and Vermin home as Alan's dad, Jeff, is busy with the oil rig.
Lady Penelope, why are you in America?
Are you on a mission for my father?
Shh. I am an undercover agent, so please try to be discreet.
Really? The woman going to an all-boys boarding school, wearing bright pink, with a bright pink car, is going to give lessons on being discreet.
They head off in Lady Penelope's jet car back to Tracy Island.
Meanwhile, the Thunderbirds drop the oil rig workers outside a hospital, although one of the workers fires some green goo at Thunderbird 1.
It turns out the goo is some sort of tracking device for the villain of the movie, the Hood.
Back at the island, we get to meet the rest of the Tracy family and discover that they're all insufferable pricks.
It's not my first day on a Thunderbird, you know. Try and keep up.
Yeah, don't you have homework to do or something?
Unless he's blown up this school like the last one.
Alan sneaks off into Thunderbird 1 as Lady Penelope discovers that the oil rig fire wasn't an accident.
We're then introduced to Alan's love interest for the film, Tintin, who you might recognise from High School Musical, although you should be ashamed to admit that.
Anyway, we see Alan and Verma in the cockpit and they accidentally start the launch sequence.
It's almost as if the highly sophisticated rocket ship requires some form of training before you can use it.
Alan gets someone to speak to his dad, while Verma discovers some green goo.
Looks like some sort of gallium electrolyte compound.
No, it doesn't.
Alan gets told off by his father, leading to an argument and Alan getting grounded.
Bizarrely, it seems the film wants us to sympathise with Alan and his selfish attempts to endanger his family just to satisfy his own vanity.
After that, Jeff has a chat with his son John, who's in Thunderbird 5.
Anything else on your mind?
Well, I've been wanking a lot. It's like living in a snow globe.
The next day, we see Vermont talking to his dad, Brains.
And I found some sort of gallium compound on the nose cone of Thunderbird 1.
Oh, we should check that out immediately.
That'd be swell.
This is shit.
Suddenly the plot arrives as the Hood fires a missile at Thunderbird 5.
Luckily, this was done near Tracy Island, and so there's no way they could have detected it.
The family head off in Thunderbird 3 to help John as the Hood arrives on the island.
The Hood cuts off their communication systems as the kids who just happen to be on the beach run back to the house.
They break in and find Brains in the control room.
Unfortunately for Brains, there are no escape tubes in that room leading to other parts of the base.
After using his mind powers to force Brains to activate the console, the Hood now controls Thunderbird 5.
So he decides to have a little chat with them, mainly feeling the need to explain his backstory.
An eye for an eye?
Perhaps you've forgotten me, but surely you remember saving the life of my brother, Kirano.
I'm sorry, Mr. Tracy. I thought he was dead.
The kids watch from the air vents, but Vermont reveals their location with sneezing.
Luckily for the kids, there are escape tubes in that room leading to a different part of the base.
They lock the kids in the hangar room before the Hood's henchmen hunt them down.
I'll use the Thunderizer on the door.
How is a track-mounted mortar that fires rescue gear to people going to open a door?
The kids get into the vehicles, managing to use them surprisingly easily.
Hey, watch it! I took microbiology, not driver's ed!
No, you didn't. We saw you just learning Pythagoras. What next? You're going to learn quantum physics, then afterwards someone might teach you how to wipe your ass?
They take out the goons with green foam before Alan cuts down the door and Vermont grabs a plot device.
The Hood catches up with them, but luckily he doesn't have any mind control powers, and so Alan runs off.
The kids are trapped, but Alan manages to hit a release button, sending them through more tubes being chased by fire.
Assuming that the children are dead, the bad guys start to prep Thunderbird 2 for the next part of their plan.
The kids end up in the ocean before regrouping and making a new plan.
Data from Tracy Island is sent to Thunderbird 5 via satellite, right?
Right?
So, there's a minuscule possibility that if we reach the island satellite station, we could...
Blow it up.
No, we could hack into it and give control back to Thunderbird 5.
Wow, Alan, you really are ready to be a Thunderbird.
Vermet reveals the plot device that he stole, the control chip for Thunderbird 2.
Elsewhere, Lady Penelope watches as the world falls into chaos the moment that the Thunderbirds disappear.
As Lady Penelope gets ready to investigate, the Hood discovers that Thunderbird 2 won't work.
Guidance processor.
What's wrong with it?
There isn't one.
Clever Alan.
Not even slightly.
Back with the kids, and a scorpion on Alan's shoulder reveals that Tintin has psychic powers as well.
Still think everything can be explained by science?
Everything except your relentless bullshit.
Vermet tries to use a transmitter but needs some metal to solder it, using Alan's retainer in the end.
Removing the retainer shouldn't hurt, but based on how much of a moron Alan is, I'm guessing he'd superglued it to his teeth.
As they attempt to contact Thunderbird 5, we cut to the female henchman trying her moves on Brains.
It's funny because she's ugly and thus of no worth.
Back with the kids, and the signal gets jammed before they can help Thunderbird 5.
I'm sorry, Alan. This is hard on all of us.
Although you might notice how it's only Alan who's being a dick about it.
Some goons show up and start chasing them, Alan and Vermet heading to a junkyard while Tintin distracts them.
In the junkyard, they find a perfectly working hover sled that they dumped into the jungle because they hate recycling.
While Alan and Vermet prepared the hover sled, they start arguing.
I don't think this is safe.
You don't think anything is safe?
Gosh, Alan, you're so unlikable. Could I interest you in a holiday at Camp Crystal Lake?
They head off with the villains chasing them, Alan leaving the others behind by accident as he tries to go quicker to get over the trees.
Luckily, he's now going fast enough and so can stop, yet still hover and watch the others get captured.
The kids are thrown into a freezer as Lady Penelope arrives, and we catch up with Thunderbird 5.
Entry into Earth's atmosphere in 37 minutes.
Oxygen's out in 30, so we won't feel a thing.
Stop it!
Come on, Dad.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now?
Back on the island, we're forced to sit through a tedious fight scene as Lady Penelope and Parker take on the Hood's goons.
Alan notices that when the Hood uses his powers, they weaken him, but has to let himself get captured in order to stop the Hood torturing Parker and Lady Penelope.
This also allows the Hood to get the guidance chip from Alan, even though we clearly saw that Fermat had it.
In the freezer, they're all reunited.
We made quite a pair. It's hard for me to talk.
And you're a twat.
The Hood heads off in Thunderbird 2 as the others escape from the freezer and help Thunderbird 5.
How long have they got before re-entry?
90 seconds and counting.
90 seconds until re-entry? Well, you'd best hurry up because they ran out of oxygen 5.5 minutes ago.
It turns out they are all still alive, and they narrowly avoid re-entry.
Luckily, a lack of oxygen makes you sleepy, but is otherwise harmless.
They explain that Thunderbird 3 was damaged somehow, and thus they won't be back in time.
Sadly, as there's no one more competent available, such as a brain-dead frog, they agree to let Alan attempt to stop the Hood.
They set off in Thunderbird 1 as the Hood arrives in London.
He's drilling underground to get into the bank, but doesn't even land in the closest park.
The Hood drills through monorail support as Alan and the others take control of Thunderbird 2.
Alan goes off into Thunderbird 4 to help the people trapped in the monorail, meaning he's now inexplicably able to drive every vehicle.
For some reason, Tintin has to dive into the water to attach a cable to some debris so they can pull it out.
Although she's in the Thames, so presumably her eyes and skin have melted and she choked to death on used condoms.
Alan saves the people on the monorail as the other Thunderbirds show up and Lady Penelope confronts the Hood.
Shoot him. You know he has mind control powers. Why would you waste time talking?
Of course, before trying to stop the Hood, Alan and his dad decide to have a chat.
What was Mom like?
She was a lot like you.
A whiny little bitch.
At the bank, Parker deals with one goon, Tintin with the other, as Alan confronts the Hood.
Despite having had several chances to kill Alan, None of them seemed dramatic enough for the Hood, until now.
However, Tintin shows up and uses her powers to save Alan.
Because having barely used her superpowers, she's somehow already mastered them more than... Oh, fuck it, is this over yet?
So Alan saves the Hood, who is taken into custody as the family celebrates back on the island. In conclusion, probably the best thing about this movie is that they managed to retain a lot of the old look of the show. The vehicles, Lady Penelope and her car, and the Hood all look very similar to the old show itself.
Although that falls apart totally when you look at the family. They all look the same, I don't know who's meant to be who. The dull, lifeless puppets had more character and individuality. When you see a shot of the entire family together, it's like some dull, generic advert for sweater vests or Aryan superiority.
Well, there are always going to be changes. It's more like a reboot, making it more accessible for a younger generation.
Well, yeah, but the original show appealed to younger viewers without having to dumb itself down into a generic mess. If I were younger, I'd be quite annoyed that I meant to relate to this tedious dickhole of a character. Alan is an ignorant, whiny, self-entitled little shit who doesn't deserve any of the things he has, doesn't learn any lessons, but is still somehow the hero at the end. If they'd have at least made it that the Hood found them because of his mistake, or at least let him think that, he might have actually learnt something and grown as a person.
It does at least try to be entertaining, with lots of action, some silly jokes that might appeal to kids, and plenty of cool gadgets and vehicles on display.
Yeah, but just because you're trying to appeal to kids doesn't mean you have to forget how to write a plot. Why doesn't the Hood fire a second missile at Thunderbird 5 when everyone's on board? Or pilot it into the planet or into the sun? He makes a big thing about wanting his revenge, but doesn't even wait to see it happen. It's never explained why he's in such a rush to try and rob the banks. Even a lot of the action scenes in the film are quite dull. I found a lot of the time my mind was just wandering off, unable to really focus on the relentless mediocrity and tedium that was on screen.
Oh no, that's not fair. Just when things were starting to sizzle.
Ultimately, it's a film for kids, with lots of bright colours, cool toys, and a message that working together as a team will get the job done.
What am I saying? We can do this.
At the end of the day, it's a terrible remake that lacks a lot of the charm and innovation of the original, with a hideous protagonist and a retarded villain who would have got away with it if it wasn't for those pesky kids.
And then up to the transmitter. So what do you think?
Good. Except that we're here, not there, and the transmitter is there, not here.